and welcome back to Bookish Theories! In today's video, we'd like to talk about Tomorrow by Together's Fight or Escape, focusing on a little breakdown and analysis of the concept photos and clips to see what they can tell us about the upcoming comeback. Now, as I mentioned in my recent theory short, the first detail that we can notice about the two versions is the fight is obviously set in reality, while Escape seems to be set in the world of their imagination. Considering what we saw back in 0x1 Love Song, this is a contrast that will play a major role in this comeback, because up until now, the Chaos chapter seems to be about the boys' experience with growing up and their feelings of rebellion regarding the world that surrounds them. If back in Freeze this idea was conveyed with a punk concept, a Yeonjun escaping his reality to reunite with the others in his imagination, this time around the theme of rebellion is explored with a skater concept in reality and a heist concept in the fantasy. As we'll see in a second, however, Fight or Escape might also dive deeper on the reasons behind this rebellion, because even if the concepts are very bright, there is also an underlying feeling of sadness that is especially evident in the Fight version. If we take a look at the messages that we see on the website, for instance, Fight portrays a day where the boys and Mo have fun together. In contrast with the boy version, where they reunited after the pandemic but still experienced a sense of alienation in relation to this event, this time around all the members seem happy and they had so much fun that they don't even care about the injuries that they sustained while skating. Now, the main reason behind this happiness is actually foreshadowed by Moa themselves, because in the messages, Moa tells us that this day was actually scorching hot, meaning that the fight concept is essentially set in the summer. This is a very important detail because in the story, the summer represents their youth, so them being happy together during a summer day foreshadows the idea that the concept revolves around them still experiencing the summer of their life. If we take a look at the clips, however, this feeling of happiness is also a bit bittersweet, because in the background we can hear a song that approaches this concept with a sense of nostalgia and melancholia. The song that we hear in the clips is You Wouldn't Know by Zach Crook, and this is an American indie artist who is actually a very fitting choice for the themes that we see in the Chaos chapter. You see, after the song came out, Crook explained that this is a song that was written in a moment of his life where he felt like everything was slipping away. Since he wrote it at the beginning of the pandemic, Zach had to deal with his tour being cancelled and a long-distance relationship slowly coming to an end, so in an interview he explained that the song represented the beginning of him saying goodbye to the person that he loved and to a season of his life that he cared very much about. In the lyrics, he says that the world is on fire, that he has nowhere to go and nothing to do, and this is very interesting because the concept of the song is actually very similar to the experiences that the boys in the story are going through in this particular stage of their life. Much like what we saw in Blue Hour, We Lost the Summer, and even 0x1, the boys are exploring a moment of their life where they're growing up and they feel like the summer of their life is slowly slipping away. As they told us in Way On, for instance, when they start approaching their adulthood, their perception of reality starts to change. The same road that they walk time and time again looks different, and now the shadows of the sunset become scary because nobody's there with them. In this context, adulthood is portrayed as a stage of life that is dark, confusing, and even dangerous at times, and in the Chaos chapter, this concept is explored by describing the different reactions that a person might have to this sudden change. If back in Freeze the story showed us the members being overwhelmed by the cold as a result of this chaos taking over, Fight or Escape will possibly explore other two ways of dealing with this entrance into adulthood, and these two ways might revolve around them fighting this process or trying to escape it altogether. In Fight, for instance, we know for a fact that the weather is scorching hot, so what we see in the concept might literally be their way to fight the cold that threatens to overwhelm them. As we saw back in 0x1 Love Song, the you that they sing about is a person that is able to melt their frozen heart, so it's not a coincidence that in Fight they have fun in a warm day, because their love and friendship is literally the only thing that is able to keep the cold at bay. As I mentioned earlier, however, the whole idea seems to be that no matter how much they try to fight it, this stage of their life is coming to an end sooner rather than later, and this concept might connect us right back to some of their past eras. The fight concept, for instance, was already foreshadowed all the way back in the Dream chapter Eternity, not only because in Can't You See Me we literally saw the boys fighting, but also because in the port version, Yeonjun was associated to a movie called Paranoid Park. This is a film by Gus Van Sant where the protagonist is a skater who accidentally kills a person on the train tracks, and much like in our story, the movie is all about youth and the ways in which a young boy tries to process his first dark experience with adulthood. On top of that, the plot point of the person dying on the train tracks might also connect us right back to Magic Island, where the boys themselves were run over by the train-shaped cat after the island was set on fire. Now, even if in the fight version we just see the boys having fun, references to the story might actually be found both on them and in their surroundings. If the fire is referenced on their shoes, Taeyeon has a star on his shirt and on his ear. The cat, on the other hand, can be seen in the background under Yeonjun's skateboard as well as on his hat, so it's very possible that in this comeback we'll see a story that is somehow connected to the Dream Chapter trilogy. Now, this idea is also reinforced by Escape, because even if the concept itself is very new, there are also some clues that actually connect us to some plot points that we saw in the past. As I mentioned earlier, for instance, Escape seems to be a version that revolves around them trying to escape reality in order to find comfort in their imagination. On their clothes, we see that this is a teenage dream where the boys are the children of the revolution, and this is a song by T-Rex that not only fits the rock concept of freeze, but is also about teenage rebellion. Much like it was foreshadowed by No Rules, this is a world where they can do whatever they want, be whoever they want, and rebel against the reality that surrounds them, and the same concept was already introduced back in the Dream Chapter Magic, because back then the boys ran away into their dream and created new rules that allowed them to be free. If you look closely, however, the heist concept that is portrayed in the clips is actually styled like a quest where the members have a specific role and a potential antagonist that is targeting them, meaning that Escape might actually be portraying a quest that is set in the virtual reality of the game. In the clips, for instance, this world is presented as a pixelated reality where each of the members is introduced like a character of a video game. We can see their physical features, name, date of birth, stats, and this is a style that heavily recalls the VR version of Blue Hour. Back in that concept, the boys had a different name that was associated to a character inspired by the classes that can be played in Dungeons & Dragons, and even if in Escape they seem to be playing a different game, it's also true that they're playing a character nonetheless, because their clothes actually match their animal counterparts. This might be an indication that in this particular game, the boys are playing as the animals that represent them, and this idea might also be reinforced by their character traits, which don't fit their original characters but fit their animals instead. Subin's role in the heist, for instance, is to watch if someone is coming, and rabbits are animals that are known to be in a constant state of alert. Yeonjun instead finds the target fast and accurately, and the fox is a predator that is very fast and known for its hunting skills. If Yurinka is messing everything up, penguins are animals that can be very majestic but also incredibly clumsy. Taeyeon, on the other hand, guesses the password and unlocks the safe, and squirrels also happen to be great at finding food but also great at stealing food from other animals. While Bomgyu's bear can be a violent predator instead, when they are in their environment, bears are also known to be very playful and chill, and in the video, Bomgyu is chilling out and reading comics. These character traits suggest that the boys might be escaping their world to run away in the virtual reality of the game, and this idea is also reinforced by other clues as well. If you look at the concept as a whole, for instance, the setting is very similar to the one that we saw back in Magic Hour, which was an album that contained the Japanese version of Runaway, where the boys did indeed run away in the virtual reality of the game. On top of that, the camera filter that we can see in the photos and clips heavily recalls the Arcadia concept of the Dream Chapter Magic, and that was an album about them escaping reality in order to reach Magic Island. The reference to Arcadia, however, is also important for the name itself, because Arcadia not only refers to a utopia where people can live in harmony with nature and with each other, but it's also a name of a kingdom in Dungeons & Dragons, which is a game that they referenced in Blue Hour as well as in The Doom's Night. If all this wasn't enough, it's also important to point out that the concept trailer showed us the boys playing in an arcade, and 0 by 1 Love Song showed us Yeonjun dealing with his home life by playing with video games, so the game concept is indeed a part of the story, even if up until now it's been shown in a very subtle way. Now, since Yeonjun's outfit is very similar to the one that we saw back in Magic, we might even argue that Magic itself was part of the game concept as well, and this is because that video dealt with the same themes that we see in the Chaos chapter as a whole. As I mentioned earlier, both albums seem to explore the theme of rebellion both in reality and in the fantasy. If we look at 0 by 1, Magic, Fight, and Escape, all of them show us the boys rebelling against the norm in one way or another. Whether they're stealing something, defacing public property, or rebelling against a robot dystopia, the overall idea is that the boys don't like the reality that they live in, and they're acting up in order to fight the alienating feeling that they're experiencing while growing up. Much like what we saw in Boy and World, for instance, this is a stage of life that is very cold and lonely. They don't feel accepted, they don't feel heard, they're anti-romantics who reject love, and the only way for them to deal with these issues is to either fight, flight, or freeze. As they told us in 0x1 Love Song, the boys are losers in this game of life, but when they are together, they actually become lovers, and this concept brings us right to the title track of this album. Now, as I mentioned in my first video about this comeback, the contrast between loser and lover seems to have been inspired by Stephen King's It, where the losers club become lovers as a result of the friendship that keeps them together. Even if each of them has to confront their own fears and problems, when they are united, the losers are not losers anymore, and this is because the love that they share highlights the best part of who they are and allows them to fight the enemy and escape their issues. Now, considering that the title track tells us that losers equals lovers, it seems that the Chaos chapter might be dealing with this theme in the very same way, because in the story, the boys are losers and lovers at the same time, just like they were angels or devils in the past. This duality is especially evident in the pictures because for the most part the boys are divided between losers and lovers according to the situation. Subin, for instance, is lover in fight but loser in escape. Yeonjun instead is loser in escape but is both in fight, even though it's important to point out that on issue we can see the word winner, which may or may not be relevant to the plot. Bumgyu is both in fight and a lover in escape, while Taeyeon is loser in fight but loved in escape. Hyunin Kai instead is loser in both, but in escape we also see that he has Echoes of Love on his chest, and this is a big clue because Echoes of Love is actually the title of two songs, both of which are about remembering a love that is no longer there. Now, this reference is very suspicious because if you look closely in both versions we can see that Hyunin Kai is actually recording the others with a camera. This action might suggest his intention of remembering these moments whether it's in reality or in the fantasy, and if this is the case then this might reinforce the idea that the moments that we are seeing are about to come to an end sooner than later. Now, since Hyunin Kai has been going through it for a while now, this might be an indication that this comeback might focus on his story, but at the same time there are also some clues that point at other members as well. In the behind the scenes, for instance, the boys told us that Taeyeon is the protagonist of the Escape version. If in Escape Yeonjun is back being king, moreover, in Fight it's Subin the one associated to the crown, while back in World Bumgyu was king instead. All of these clues might imply that this time around the story might focus on all the members instead of just one, but to know how things will play out we'll have to wait and see. In the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please think about liking and subscribing. As always, thank you so much for watching guys, I'll see you next time, bye